Hi there, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Cloud-Based Mayhem. In fact, episode 278 of the Cloud-Based Mayhem. It just kind of blows my mind. I'm doing this now for 12, going on 13 years. Thanks to all of you listening, which I really appreciate. My guest today is Kris Holub. We did this in person, which is rare these days, but that was fantastic to sit down with him. We did it in the Airstream during a bit of a weather day in Chelan at the U.S. Nationals at the end of June. So there is going to be some native sound you'll hear in the background, some birds and stuff, but hopefully it's not too bad. And what a great convo. Kris is one of my favorite people. He's been in our community for a long time, and we all gravitate towards different things when we get into this fantastic sport. And Kris went full acro and still very keen on acro, spends a lot of time going around the world and flying acro, competed for a long time, still does sometimes. But he spends a lot of time in Oludeniz, now teaching SIV and acro, and he's very good at it. And he spent a good portion of last winter, our winter, their summer, down in Patagonia, living and flying there with his buddy Marcos Rosenkjer, who has been in our community for a long time, but has relocated now permanently down in Argentina. And much of this today, this talk with Kris, is about his adventures down there. And they capped it all off at the end with the 300 plus Convergence flight. This is the Convergence they had been seeing down there, set up almost in the same place on the days where it was flyable. And they think they didn't get it all the way to the ocean this time, but they think on those days you could actually fly all the way to the coast. And so this is their story of the deepness. You're very remote down there in this part of the world, and how it all came together, and the glue of their team, and some remarkable photos and videos come along with this. So as you're listening to this show, go to cloudbasedmayhem.com and pull up the post from this and check out some of Kris's amazing videography from that trip and others. Right after Chelan, he went up and sent a really cool flight. They broke a bunch of records actually that week up in Pemberton, up in BC. And one little new addition that we're starting off with this show with Kris is that we're going to cut off the main show at around 30 minutes, the typically free show. Don't get too worried. Everything will remain free, and it always will be. We're never going to put anything behind a paywall. But I had someone a lot smarter than I am look at it recently, and I told him that I was basically following the same model that Sam Harris does. And he listened to Sam Harris, and he said, yeah, but Sam switched over to this way years ago, and you should too. And the reason is because we've always only asked for $1 a show, as Sam does, and we won't have any advertising and never will. We think you dig that. But the reason he cuts it off at a half an hour and you have to go to the subscriber channel is it does push people to support if they can. And like I said, all we've ever asked for is $1 a show. If you can, great. And there are many ways to do so. You hear that at the end of every show, so I won't go into it here. But what's going to happen here is about a half an hour, it's going to cut off, and you'll hear me again and say, hey, go over to our subscriber channel. If you are a subscriber already, that's where you'll find it. And from now on, just listen to everything on the subscriber channel. We're going to put out 2 versions, the one that goes a half an hour and the one that goes the full time. And we're also going to create another thing. Sometimes we're having really amazing conversations with people, and I try to keep it to about an hour, but we're leaving a lot left unsaid. And that's what we feel like the statistics show that's about what people can listen to is about an hour. But we're also going to have we don't put out much bonus content, but we will in the future. So when these conversations we're just rolling and it's painful to cut them off in an hour, I'm going to keep them going. So you'll hear another one. Every once in a while, we'll have a conversation that goes more than an hour, and you'll find that in the bonus content, which is also on that subscriber content. So go over to the subscriber. You'll see under podcasts on the link on the website, under that menu, you'll see the subscriber drop down. Go to that. It shows you how to sign up. If you're not a subscriber, and you're a subscriber, if you've ever bought anything off the website, if you've reached out in the past, it's a lifetime subscription. If you can't support it financially and you're not a subscriber, just send me an email I'll get you all set up, no questions asked. Maybe someday you'll be able to. But the statistics behind it are about 6% of our listeners actually subscribe and support the show financially. I'm hoping we can bump that up a little bit, and it'll just make this more of it'll make it more of an endeavor that covers more of the bills. So, Kris Holub, fascinating individual with some great thoughts about risk and learning and things to avoid and things to focus on, and just an all-around great conversation. So, enjoy. Kris, it's kind of a treat to be able to do this in person. We're here in Chelan at Nationals, and you showed me some pretty crazy stuff video-wise from Patagonia, and it reminded me of this. I was following all that when you were doing it. So let's start there, and then we'll dig into your history a little bit. But this Patagonia trip looked just incredible.
Oh yeah, no, I'm psyched to be doing this too. It's fun to be face to face chatting. Yeah, I had a great time. So I went down there from beginning of December through mid-March, and it was kind of open-ended. I knew I wanted to spend the winter there because I had done the last couple of seasons in Valle Columbia. Kind of feel like I was sort of doing Groundhog's Day, doing the same thing over and over. Just wanted to try something new. And it turns out my friend Marcos Rosenkjer, he came to Boulder some years ago around the time I started flying or a little after. And he grew up in Georgia, but he's from Bariloche. He was born there. So he's kind of like half American, half Argentinian, mostly American, if you ask me. So he moved back to Bariloche a couple of years ago. So I've known of it. I've had friends who've gone down there, and they sing the praises of like how beautiful it is and how fun. So I was like, I want to do something different. Like that looks like a cool lifestyle. I'll hopefully be able to fly. I know Patagonia, has a reputation for difficult weather.
Yeah, wind.
But he was selling it a lot because he does a lot of sailplanes and kiteboarding, wing foiling. There's backpacking. There's like all this cool stuff. So
is Luis down there too?
He is living on a sailboat right now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I can't remember where he was at the time, but I know he lives, I think, full time on a sailboat now. So it's just Marcos and his wife now.
Oh, he's married.
Yeah, actually, he has a kid on the way coming
soon.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So
he and his dad just pop up in the craziest places. I'll just see. I think last year when I was over doing the media thing for the X Alps, it was just boom, they were there all of a sudden.
Yeah.
They do that all the time.
Yeah. So he invited me down there, or he's had an open invitation for a couple of years. And I hit him up and I kind of asked, hey, what's the deal? When's the time to come? So I was coming from a dune flying trip in Peru right before that. So I did Peru in November and then showed up in Bariloche, and I found an Airbnb for the full time for 3+ months, and it was pretty reasonable cost of living. So I kind of just showed up. I'm like, well, I've got a friend there. I'll just kind of see what happens and figure it out.
Paint a picture for Bariloche. What's it like? What's it similar to? Where is it?
Yeah, so Argentina is pretty long north-south. It's very large landmass, and Patagonia, I was actually ignorant of this before going down there. I always thought of Patagonia as the clothing skyline, Fitzroy, Cerro Torre, the savage weather, all that stuff. And I did not realize that Patagonia is actually a very large region. I forget what the exact landmass is, but you could basically imagine combining like Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Utah, and actually
make them all skinny and
it's kind of runs north south. So you have the Andes that runs north south with the Chilean side on the west and the Argentinian side on the east. And you actually, I think those comparisons to those states is pretty accurate, based on kind of the in a way.
Yeah.
So
there's a lot of landmass.
Yeah, the Andes in that region around Bariloche, they're not as huge and epic as further north, and they're not as dramatic as like the Fitzroy skyline, but they're pretty good size. And I think it's like maybe 11K is typical. There's some volcanoes that I think go up to like 14.
Okay.
So it's relatively high, and I think the town is at maybe like 3,000 or 4,000 feet, something like that. So there's some decent prominence. And what's pretty interesting about it is you have all these biomes that change pretty quickly. So Bariloche, I would describe it as, imagine like you took Switzerland, but it was conquered by Spain, and you butted up against Wyoming. Yes. So it's got, you got this little Swiss German like very European style town, a beautiful mountain lake. There's a ski area there, and like maybe 35K to the west, there's a glaciated volcano, and just beyond that, it turns into rainforest on the Chilean side. But if you go 10, 15K east, it turns into desert for a couple hundred
Whoa.
miles, and they call it the estepa. The geological term is a steppe, which is basically a high desert plateau,
Yeah.
and that runs out for probably a couple hundred miles, like basically all the way to the Atlantic Ocean.
Whoa.
So you like in one flight, you can fly over a glaciated volcano, over Alps-like terrain, into the desert, and you can do that all in one flight. So it's crazy that you can
The
see all
video you
these
showed
things.
me, that sped up video that you were doing with the 3D camera, it was very much kind of Cerro Torre type terrain with the lakes and the snow and then the desert. It was crazy how it changed so much.
Yeah, it changes really, really fast. It's really dramatic. And I know some of that is because you have kind of a fern like effect of the prevailing westerlies come up over the Andes. It drops a lot of moisture on the west side,
Yeah.
and then it dries out. So even within Bariloche, on the western side of town, it rains quite a bit more than the east, and it turns the
It's kind
desert.
of a Sierras phenomenon. You're taking all that
Yeah,
moisture from the Chilean side and it just dries up on the other side.
yeah, but the peaks are so dramatic that the transition is more abrupt.
Right.
So I think it's a fair comparison to if you took the Cascades, but you like smashed them up against Utah and Wyoming,
Mm.
because the steppe or the steppe reminds me a lot of Wyoming. Like if you teleported out there, you'd be like, this looks like kind of a weird version of Wyoming, and it's really remote. It actually makes Wyoming look populated.
Whoa.
There is no water, there is no lakes, there is no streams, there are no ponds, there are no trees. There
Whoa.
are very few roads,
Huh.
very few towns. It's extremely remote. Population wise, I think the population density is probably similar to like Alaska in that region, and you can go a long ways between anything.
And so were these, that you posted when you had the big one? I'll let you tell that story, but were these day missions? Were these big week-long bivvies? How are you handling that kind of remoteness and dealing with it from the safety side?
So what I really liked about it is I don't think I flew the same line twice in the entire 3 or 4 months I was down there, because you can do mountain triangles over Alps-like terrain. The difference is the cloud base can get up to 14K, so you're actually quite above the terrain most of the time. And there's also missions where you go out into the Estepa, and most of them were day or overnight missions.
And are these, a couple hour strikes from Bariloche, or are you guys going into the mountains and staying there are you going deeper, or is it just from Marcos's place?
So most of the days we would start from the ski area. So if we're
Okay.
doing like a triangle in the mountains, we would start there, and then you can go.
And that's right above town.
Yeah, you can drive, or I would usually Uber because I didn't have a car down there. You can
Yeah.
drive to the ski area, and they actually don't let you take the lift up, but you can hike up, and it's like 1,500 feet, and you take off from there, and you can go many different directions. So on the days that were good enough for mountain flying, we would start there and usually try to do some kind of triangle and come back. He also just found the launch in the last year or two, kind of right at the beginning of the Estepa, which also happens to be underneath a very common convergence zone. So he found some logistics where we can drive out there, and we were hiring a local buddy of his to take his truck out and with a Starlink, and that's kind of the new tweak that turned this place on, because Starlink only became available there in the last couple of years, and before that, it's like if you bomb out, you have no hope. There's no way you're hitchhiking. You have no cell service, and the bigger problem is even if you have a pin, Google Maps can't route you because none of the roads are on the map. So what the driver would have to do if you have a pin is he's got to open up Starlink Google Maps, go to satellite view, trace the roads manually, and figure out how to get to you.
Whoa.
So if you don't have service, it's a real issue
Right.
to get out of there. So
Wow.
but with the driver and Starlink, we were able to do the days that were a little too windy for the mountains, fly out into the desert, and often we would go so far and so late that it would take 6-8 hours to drive home, and we're not landing until 9 or 10 p.m. So we would just camp there and then drive back the next
What
day.
is your solar window? What were you guys getting in midsummer? So that's around, you started around the solstice, right? Mid-December, and then
Yeah, so the latitude is 41 degrees south, so it's
okay.
basically similar to the Wyoming border. I forget exactly when solar noon was, but I think typically we could launch, call it 11 o'clock plus or minus, depending on the day.
Yeah. Because
And
you've got good east-facing sites, I imagine there.
yep, the ski area predominantly accepts northeast, which
Okay.
because Southern Hemisphere,
Perfect.
northeast is ideal. So he
perfect.
did a 200K or almost 200K FAI down at that ski area a couple of years ago, which kind of put that place on the map for me. And he started really early.
And is there a local crew? Is there a club? Is this happening there? Is it just you guys?
No, there's actually a pretty solid crew. If I were to estimate, I'd say in Bariloche there's maybe 30 or so pilots, and in the greater general region, which includes further north along the lakes and also down south in El Balsan, I would guess there's, call it 75 or so pilots. There's not a lot of higher level pilots. There's a couple of guys that are doing really good XC, but a lot of them are more beginner, intermediate, and they're flying El Bolson, which I think is a little more well known. It's a bit more consistent, but it's west facing, so it doesn't get exposure until later in the day. It's a bit later start. It's a bit lower.
Is this place that you guys are flying? Is this where Marcos was trying to do a comp a couple years ago?
He was trying to do the comp out of El Bolson, which is the more reliable place, and then that ended up falling through with just some logistics.
But it could work.
It could work. El Bolson definitely flies more, but you don't get as big of the days because you can't start as early. But it is more sheltered from the wind and weather, and those guys are definitely flying more. And
would you compare it to, I mean, is the westerly influence a big deal like it is in Boulder? Or how reliable is it? Is it something you've got to really watch out for, or is it the Andes are so big that they're blocking most of that?
It's not as dangerous as the Boulder one. In Boulder, you have the really strong prevailing westerlies in the uppers, and we kind of have this like lee side bubble, and that can break down very quickly, and then the westerlies come in and surprise you. And there, for whatever reason that I didn't fully understand, I did some research and kind of forgot exactly what the meteorology behind it is, but it doesn't tend to do that. It's when it's west, it's west, it's windy, you can't do anything, and on the days where it's working,
so you just need a lack of westerly and it's probably good.
Yeah. And what was nice is, going down there, I was imagining El Chalten, Fitzroy, like that kind of Patagonia of, we're gonna get destroyed by hard weather. And it was actually very, very nice climate. Not too hot, not too cold. Most of the days where it's west, it's not even nuking. It's just too strong for paragliding. But he was teaching me a bit of wing foiling, and so it's kind of perfect on the days where you can't paraglide. You can go do that stuff. So in December, there was like a 3-week stretch right after I got there where things were shut down, but that was still kind of early season. But January, February is when it was pretty consistent. And
so kind of that Roldanillo, Valle time period is perfect down there.
Yeah, and that's...
So if you're looking for something different to do, it sounds awesome.
Yeah, and you kind of got to choose one or the other. I would say because these weather windows are less consistent, it's not Valle rolled over, you're going to fly every day. I think I kept the stats, and over that 90-day period from December through March, I think I did 15 like pretty quality XCs, so it worked out to something like one every 6 days. And then in January, February, it was a bit more frequent. We actually had one stretch of 4 good days in a row. That's where that big flight that we'll talk about in a second happened. But typically the pattern we would find is you'd get one decent mountain day, one really good one, and then the westerlies would start to move in. Then we could go fly the Estepa, and then it would be too much. So you could get 1 to 3 days in a row, and then you kind of sit on your hands for a week, and then rinse, repeat. And it's not...
I'm imagining prefrontal was what you were flying on, or is it post?
I think it was post frontal. They didn't have like the weather discussion, and I'm really bad. I'm good at meteorology for forecasting flights. I'm really bad at macro meteorology of identifying fronts. So you kind of see there's cleared out, and like the lapse rate's good. And but it's not so regularly cyclical that you can plan on, it's going to happen. You might get a couple days in a row and then maybe nothing happens for 10 days or something. So it's kind of tricky to go down there for anything less than 2 weeks. I think you're rolling the dice of getting skunked. So it's a better place to go for a longer period of time.
It sounds like a great place to hang out.
Yeah.
And I've been in Argentina. I mean, the food's amazing, and
the people are awesome. And it's great. That was kind of my other thing with Oludeniz. Like, they're great. The flying's awesome. They're world class for a reason, but I find that the lifestyle, after a while, I'm like, man, I kind of miss home. This is different. It's tough when you don't fly, but there I'm like, this is incredible. You have world-class backpacking, world-class climbing, amazing kiteboarding, wing foiling, mountain biking. You can ski in the winter. Like, you have all this stuff you can do. So unlike those other places, like, it's a great time on the ground. Like, you have tons of fun. The people are great. It's very European feel. Like, it has a lot of Italian influence, so it doesn't feel like South America at all. It feels like you're in Europe.
Ah, cool.
Yeah.
And are there refugios and little cafes and cool places?
Yeah, there's a large refugio network all through the national park. So there's like the big classic loop you can do is the 4 refugios trek, and I forget the stats, but I think it's something like 26 miles round trip and maybe like 12,000 vertical gain up and down. And most of the way people are doing that is going and hiking all day, staying in the refugio, getting a meal, and they kind of bounce from refugio to refugio.
Cool. So you're not carrying much. And
yeah, though I did have some friends come down, and we did a backpacking mission through the park. We started at the volcano and worked our way through the park, and we wild camped, I think, 3 nights, and we just did refugio on the last night. So we had backpacking gear, and once we got away from the refugios, it was kind of had the whole thing to ourselves. We camped by an alpine lake, and we were the only ones there. We had the whole place to ourselves. It was really, really pretty, really fun.
I'll just drop this in there now for the listeners. We'll put up all your, well, not all, that's impossible, but we'll put up a bunch of videos and pictures from this, and that made me think we should add a map, and so people can take a break right here and go look at the blog post and get familiarized with the area. I mean, I've flown down there quite a bit. I've done Argentina nationals, that kind of thing, but I've never been in this area. It sounds awesome.
Yeah, no, it's great. And as far as the flying goes, so on the days you can fly, it's Alps-like terrain in the sense of quite a lot of vertical relief from valley to top. The terrain that rises up has quite a bit exposed above tree line. As it's not as grassy as Alps, but there is a lot of top landing opportunity. It's less isolated for landing zones and like the Cascades. Like, there are places you can land if you had to, but it can be a long walk out if you go there. And unlike the Alps, you get way above the terrain. I think the mountaintops are 10-ish, and you can get to 14, 15, 16 even over that terrain. So you have a lot of clearance. So it's less of the ridge running style. Like, you climb up. A lot of the days are blue. Sometimes you have clouds. Quite strong, or can be quite strong, especially in Stepa. It's kind of like Chelan, but more.
On the days, if you get that kind of, best case scenario, maybe a 3-day window where the middle one is really good, it doesn't sound so suited though to bivvy unless those other days, or can you kind of still piece together little stuff before the wind comes in, or what? I mean, I typically think of bivvy as you need a few days to kind of piece stuff together. Would it work for that?
Yeah, I think it could be done.
Okay.
The forecast was surprisingly useful there. We used XC Skies and SkySight quite a bit, and I was impressed that it called the weather pretty reliably. We were seldom surprised that the day basically worked the way expected. And what's nice is it almost never ODs there. It's like if it's windy, it's windy and you're shut down, but there's almost never, I don't think on any of the days we were flying that we had to worry about thunderstorms, and the clouds were pretty friendly. So there weren't a lot of surprises. There weren't random high clouds coming and shutting things down. So I think when you have the forecast that says that, you definitely could string together a Volbiv. You just, maybe you're not going to have multiple or many epic days in a row, but you can probably do a 1-night, 2-nighter.
your footage just screamed for it. God,
Yeah, no, and you know, I've actually that flight, I've never vol bib before. That was the first one I've ever done. I came from a mountaineering climbing background before flying, so I'm, you know, comfortable with camping, but I've never gone vol bib, mostly because it's hard in Colorado. It's hard to find place to top land. It's hard to find multiple good mountain days in a row. I know Pete and some other guys have done it, but it's difficult to pull off, and the opportunities I've had have felt kind of contrived. Like, yeah, you could do it and you could go land and camp and you're kind of doing it to do it, but I always wanted to do it as a mission, as something that made sense. It was for a specific goal. It enabled something that couldn't be done. So at the end of the season, it was actually like the last big flight we had there. There was that 4-day window that was good. We flew the first couple of days just doing day missions, and then some of Marcos's buddies came down. Hernan Pitoko, I don't know if you know him.
Yeah.
He came down because they saw the good window, and so we were.
And Hernan's in Cordoba, right?
I think that's right.
Okay.
Yeah,
so how long is that? How far are you from there?
They took a flight, but I think the flight was like an hour and a half.
Oh, so it's a ways. Okay.
Yeah, gotcha. I looked at the drive once, and it was definitely a substantial drive.
Okay. Yeah, Argentina's pretty stretched out.
Yeah. So, you know, they came down and we got together and we were trying to game plan what the mission, what the line's going to be, and we were looking at different triangles. And we were looking through the weather, and I was like, "Oh, hang on. In 2 days, there's going to be a convergence line that steps up." And it turns out that there's a
and you're getting that on SkySight.
Yeah, and you can see it really clearly. SkySight itself,
SkySight's amazing.
Yeah, it's got that converge layer, so it shows up clear as day there. But also the cloud depth or cloud base layer shows up really well, like right on the boundaries where the convergence is, and it's a pretty well known phenomenon. It's quite similar to the dry line convergence that they have in Texas, where you have a maritime and a continental air mass that collide. So it's more reliable than the Texas one. It doesn't tend to OD as hard. So the kind of the big systems you have the prevailing westerlies coming off the Pacific, and then you have a northern air mass, which I think is the more moist one coming off the northern plains of Argentina. So they collide and you get this like northwest to southeast convergence line. And it's very visible. It's very common in Bariloche, especially on the windy days. You can see this cloud line just sitting there, and it runs all the way to the Atlantic Ocean.
Wow.
And there's a paper that we found after that flight that documents it. They've studied it. It's well known, and it's actually quite common that it's there. Not every day there's clouds, but that system sets up pretty frequently.
Like the Valle convergence just happens.
Way bigger scale.
But way bigger scale.
Way bigger scale.
Okay.
So it migrates north and south by hundreds of kilometers.
Oh, wow.
You know, sometimes it's way north, sometimes it's south, but it's fairly common that it sets up, and you know, depending on where it is and the specific conditions, it can be longer or shorter. But there are times where it could be 300, 400, 500 kilometers long, and It's just like Cloud Street as far as the eye can see. There was one guy who took off from the middle of the Estepa. There's a site there they've been flying, and they mostly just fly downwind along the highway. So he launched and did, I think, like 250 or something like that, and he flew all the way to the Atlantic, ran out of landmass, and had to land.
Whoa.
And so Marcos has this plan that he wants to fly 500 all the way from the Bariloche area to the ocean. You know, Marcos has got some ambitious ideas. You know, he's a creative guy. So I was like, yeah,
supported with this conversion.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, whatever. Like, maybe, you know, we'll try. So we did a couple of the Estepa missions where we were chasing the convergence, but it wasn't always in the right spot. Like we had our foot launches and we could see the line, but we couldn't quite get there. Or, you know, sometimes the convergence is actually in the blue and the cloud is in the leeward side of it.
Oh.
But it just so turns out that on the day those guys showed up, we're like, oh, in 2 days, the convergence is going to set up right over the kind of remote mountains to about 60, 70K south of Bariloche. And you could hike up there, but it's a big hike and you have to drive in, and it'd be a pain. So we came with the idea of, hey, let's fly there on, you know, instead of doing a big triangle where we might bomb out, let's do a more chill, just like 60, 70K flight. We pulled up Google Maps. We found the spot where like it's going to be here in the morning. So we took off. We did our like lazy late start, 70K, take pictures, find a spot, topland, and camp there. And I didn't even bring a tent. It was just clear skies.
Nice.
So just
Yeah.
sleeping pad, and we top landed. There was some snow and running water. So we filled up,
Perfect.
and the next morning sunrise comes up and we go to the top, and like, yeah, the wind's good. It's actually lighter than expected. I guess condors, they were out starting to soar, and we're
Whoa.
like, we want to get started early. It said it was gonna start at maybe 10 or 11, but if you bomb out, it's going to be a real epic because there's not much out there. So we're like, we want to be sure that it's on. So we really waited until
Super conservative.
super conservative. We take off, and it's like right off launch. It's a 6, and it takes us straight to 14. And we're
So
like,
you left some time on the table.
oh
there
yeah,
for
we're
sure.
like, shit, we should have launched an hour earlier. Like, and
Right.
it was clear based on the feeling of the air and the altitude. We're like, yep, we launched directly into the convergence. Like, it's here. You can see wispies popping. So I think we
Wow.
had maybe 7 guys, and we gaggled out and made a plan to team fly as much as we could. So we had to do maybe 30, 40 Ks in the mountains while we're waiting for the flats to turn on. And so we get to the transition, we punt out into the flats, and we almost bomb out. We had to low save because the convergence wasn't working well enough to see the clouds yet. All we had is where it was forecasted, and there's some disagreement on which line we should take, and we were kind of battling to figure out where to go. We save it, get into it, and we ended up flying crosswind for a couple of hours. In hindsight, we figured out that the real convergence line was further south. We should have gone downwind into it, but some of the group wanted to push into the clouds, which were off in the distance, and the models were saying that the true convergence was going to be in the blue, and we couldn't quite get everyone organized because we were
running it? Are you running an UDI or something so you actually can see the convergence on the instrument? Have you ever tried that?
Marcos was doing that. I did not have that at the time, but I do have that now, and that would have made all the difference because we took the track logs afterwards and we superimposed them. Like, yep, like
There it was.
as soon as we got into the good lift, like it was right where it said it was supposed to be.
I've learned that from the Gordon, Bokers, who's doing all those crazy sailplane flights out in the wave in the Sierras, and I did that night flight with him. But he follows that stuff to a T.
It
He
works.
says it just nails it, and
Yeah.
I didn't realize that was a layer you could have on your UDI, and now I fly with that. When I punch out into the Snake River Plain, it's it's often blue. And when I'm just getting low and I don't know what to do, I look at that, and almost always it works. I'm like, oh, the convergence is yellow. I'm gonna go to yellow.
Yeah, I mean it's a cheat code. It
totally
works.
is.
It works. And so we didn't really get into it for 3 or 4 hours, but then eventually the clouds started popping. We're like, okay, yeah, we're getting to, I think, almost 5,000 meters.
Oh,
and I think
wow.
the surface
Are you
is like
flying with
1,000.
O2?
On some of the days where we knew we were getting really high, we brought O2. We didn't have it that day. I think actually we were, maybe it was like 4,700 or something. So
Okay. Enough.
it's okay. You get a little loopy and
Yeah.
get a little cold, but
Yeah.
it works. And the climbs can get really strong there. It's pretty good in the flats, but definitely it's on. So we kind of ended up sort of losing people one by one, get separated, and Hernan and Marcos were together. I ended up alone at one point. I could see him 10K off on a different line, but just like could never quite reach there. But we were all more or less moving in the same direction.
But everybody's still in the air.
Yeah, I think one guy landed pretty early. He didn't catch the low save, and then a couple other guys, it was like their first 100K, and they made 200, and they're like, I'm tapped out. I don't have a P system. Like I'm good. So they ended up calling it early just because like they were already stuck.
They were already stoked, yeah.
But so we kept going as long as we could, and I've been trying to crack 300 personally for years, and one reason or another just always came up a little bit short. And so the convergence was still pumping, but as the sun was getting lower in the sky, the shadow was getting cast more and more, so it was working, but it was shading everything out. And I was getting low, and I was like 285, and I'm like, please God, like, don't do this to me again. Like, come on, one more climb. Like, I'll do anything. And it was just like this desperate like 0.5 drifter, and I'm like, I'm just gonna frisbee my way over goal, and I'll get my 300, and this will be awesome. And that 0.5 just like kept going, turned like 1 to 2, and just kept going, and it took me all the way back up to base. And I rallied with Marcos. He happened to end up in the same spot, so we met back up.
Whoa, cool.
And we got to like the cloud street was still there, and we got to watch the sun drop below the horizon, lighting up the clouds underneath, and we're still 6,000-7,000 feet over the ground on final, and it's smooth, and we're just going and taking videos and pictures, and like, oh, this is amazing. And then we're like, oh shit, it's getting dark, and we're high, and like it's still going up, and I'm like, we got to get on the ground.
Now you're in the glass off, and it's just
and I'm like, oh man, we need to get on the ground. So there was
too bad you guys didn't have a strobe or something.
And so we're like full bar trying to get down, and in the last maybe 1,200 feet or so, we drop out of the convergence, and now the wind was quite strong on the surface, unbeknownst to us. And it turned like 90 degrees. So we were aiming at a road, and like, yeah, we got this on glide easy. And then suddenly it's like, oh no, it's like 20-25 miles an hour on the ground, and it's dark. And there's like rolling terrain, and so I'm like, oh god, it's like combat flying all the way to the ground. You're landing in the desert, like a couple miles away from the road. It worked out.
So you didn't get the storybook ending, but
no, we didn't quite like land together in the field we were aiming for. We missed that part. I had to walk out the desert for a couple of miles, and there's these cactus that are like landmines. Or like the caltrops. There's like the four-sided pokey thing, and they sit on the ground. They're hard to see, and you step on it, goes right through your shoe, stabs you in the foot. And so it's a pretty inhospitable climate out there. But we were stoked, and we met back up. We found each other by headlamps. I think our radios had died at that point. So we flagged each other down in the darkness with the headlamps, and we were able to contact the retrieve driver by inReach, and he's like, oh, I'm still 3 hours away, and it's 10:30 at night this time. We're like, we're gonna sleep here anyway, like we got our stuff, like just come get us in the morning. So it was howling wind on the ground, so we found some shelter in a grassy field and camped a second night, and woke up, and then we spent the whole group got back together around noon the next day, and celebrated, and then we spent the whole rest of the day driving home.
What was the final distance?
For me it was 345.
Oh, bitchin'. That's awesome.
And so, with this convergence and the fact that we left time on the day in the morning, and
huge potential.
We weren't on the ideal line. This is on a Zeolite 1.
Yeah.
So I'm like, on the right setup, especially with a winch where you could position yourself right under, like I am very, very optimistic that you could do 500, maybe more. Like if the convergence happened to be in the right spot, I think you could do more than that. And you're high altitude, you got downwind, you got clouds.
I was gonna say, what was your average speed? Do you remember?
I'd have to look it up. I think it was like a 9-hour flight.
Okay.
So it wasn't screaming fast.
Yeah.
But also we were flying crosswind for the first several hours, and then we made up a ton of time once we actually got in the proper convergence.
On a let's call it a perfect day, is your limit just the ocean? You're gonna get to the beach eventually?
Yeah, on an ideal day where you could fly fast and start early, you would eventually run into the ocean, or
you're gonna run into the easterly sea breeze, I guess. If you get low, I guess if you stay high, you're fine.
Yeah, I think so.
Because that's what you guys hit eventually, right? When you drop down into it, is that
no?
Kind of
we hit
effect?
The northerly westerlies. It wasn't the sea breeze. It was the air mass that was feeding the convergence, but it was only showing up at the lower layers for whatever reason.
I got you. Oh.
Yeah, we were actually kind of wondering, like, if it was westerly on the ground, you get to the ocean, are you gonna like just get blown out to sea? But like, if you look at the
Oopsie.
yeah, but if you look at the geography of South America, Argentina bows out if you go far enough north. I think it's I forget which city is down. Anyway, like if you are far enough north, you get quite a bit of extra east terrain.
Sure, as it starts to get closer to Brazil,
Yeah,
Barcelona,
yeah,
kind of
and it's not so insanely windy. The terrain is definitely rolling. It's deserty, so it's probably a bit more vicious and strong wind than I imagine Quechua is. I haven't flown there, but with this cloud street, I think that there's a lot of potential there if you have the logistics and are able to just like fly into the middle of nowhere. And like part of pulling that off is there's sections where there's nothing for 20 or 30K. Like you can't see a road that you're following. Like sometimes the roads are going perpendicular and there's no towns or anything, so we made a waypoint file going on just Google Earth, and we're like, okay, there's an intersection here and here and here, and we had a couple hundred waypoints, so we could look on the instrument and be like, all right, if I go this direction, like there's at least something where I'll be able to get out of here.
Yeah.
And like there's crazy stuff out there where there's like, we flew over a field of volcanic glass. It was like 15K long, and you could see it's like sharp. It's like obsidian down there. It's just like
Whoa.
there's no way you're driving through that, and God forbid you land or throw your reserve there. I'm like, yeah, don't bomb out here. So it's pretty wild. So it's not for everybody, but I think for the right adventurous pilots who want to go big, I think there's some huge potential.
All right. Hope you're enjoying this talk with Kris Holub. If you want to hear the rest of it, switch on over to our subscriber channel. As I said at the top of the show, our subscriber channel looks exactly like the main one. It just has a little bit different logo, and you'll find it in any of the listening apps you use, podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Music, whatever you use to listen to your podcast. You'll find it there. Just do a search, and it talks on the website under the podcast menu. You'll see subscriber only content. Go there and you'll get all set up. Any questions, shoot me an email. And again, we're not putting anything behind a paywall, but if you can support the show, fantastic. We love you. All we've ever asked for is $1 show. And we also realize that things are very expensive in the world these days, and you don't need more expense in your life. So if you can't support it, we get it. No problem. No questions asked. Switch on over. Hear the rest of the show with Kris. It's a good one. It's a doozy. You'll dig it. And we love you. Thanks a lot. Cheers.